I did not see the beach at first. I heard it, a voice in my headset, then another, then static, then a man trying to sound calm while the sea and engines tore his words apart. That morning, the map on the table still looked simple. 5 beaches, 5 names: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, Sword. But my headset was not listening to all of history, only one narrow piece of it. Omaha, a strip of sand on a paper map, a radio net, a line of voices trying to reach us before the morning swallowed them. I was 21 years old, a radio operator aboard an Allied command vessel off Normandy. Not a general, not a planner, not a man with binoculars and a clean view of the shore. My war was a headset, a pencil, a message pad, and a table that shook every time the ship moved under us. I could not see the men clearly. I could not reach them. But if a broken message came through, I had to catch enough of it to matter. That was my job. Listen, write, confirm, pass it on. Before sunrise, I still believed that was simple. A voice comes in, a message is written, an officer reads it, a decision moves. But war does not move cleanly through wires. War breaks words in half. The radio room smelled of warm dust, damp wool, metal, and coffee boiled too long. Men checked equipment without looking at each other for very long. One man tapped his cigarette against an ashtray even after the ash had already fallen. Another kept folding and unfolding the same scrap of paper. Outside, the sea was rough enough to make every piece of metal complain. Not a storm. Not the kind of weather men write poems about, just enough movement to make the ship feel alive under your boots. The headset pressed against my ears. When I put it on, the room became smaller. The officers behind me faded. The engines faded. The sea faded. There was only the line. At first, the voices were ordinary, short checks, call signs, positions, timing, men doing what trained men do when they are afraid, making their voices sound like procedure. Roger, say again, stand by, message received. The first sign that something was wrong was not panic, it was timing. One landing craft called earlier than expected, another called late. A unit asked for a repeat, then broke off before the answer came. A voice gave a position that did not match the pencil mark on the map. I wrote it down and looked at the officer beside me. He frowned, but only for a second. The sea could do that. The wind could do that. Radio could do that. A bad signal could make a man sound farther away than he was. A wave could hide a word. A wet set could turn a clear report into noise. So we blamed the sea first. Everyone did. It was easier. Another message came through. Approaching. Stand by. Then the signal tore apart. I waited for the rest. Nothing. I checked the dial. Touched the cable, pressed one hand against the headset. The set was working. That was the first thing I did not like. The silence was not inside the machine. It was coming from beyond it. The map still looked calm. That made it worse. Omaha was still a line, a clean strip between water and land. Small arrows pointed toward it. Markers showed where men were supposed to be. A man could look at that table and believe the morning had a shape. But the voices did not match the shape. One report said a craft had drifted. Another said obstacles were still ahead. Another asked for smoke. Another could not see the landmark he was told to use. I wrote faster. Time, call sign, fragment, request, unclear. The pencil felt too small in my hand. An officer leaned over the map and moved one marker inland. Then he stopped. His hand stayed above the paper. He did not know where to put it. That small pause stayed with me longer than the loudest sounds. A man with authority, frozen over a map because the world outside had become less certain than the paper beneath his fingers. No one in the room said the plan was failing. Men do not say things like that quickly. They ask for confirmation. They ask for source. They ask for time. They ask whether the report is reliable. They keep the machine moving because stopping the machine is a decision too large for one frightened moment. So we kept working. A call came in from close to shore. The voice was strained but controlled. Heavy resistance. Need support. Position follows. Then static. I waited. No position came. I called back. Say again? No answer. I called again. Nothing clean. Only the hiss of the line and another operator speaking over a different channel. The officer looked at me. Confirmed? I shook my head. No full position. He looked back at the map. Behind every man already on that beach, more were coming. More landing craft, more soldiers, more weight pressing toward the same strip of sand. That was the pressure in the room. Not only what had happened, what was still moving toward it. The schedule did not stop because one message broke. The sea kept carrying men forward. The next wave did not vanish because the first voice disappeared. Another signal cut in. A different craft, a different voice. They had missed their mark, or thought they had. It was hard to tell. The man gave 2 words, then a number, then corrected himself. The officer beside me snapped his fingers for the message pad. I handed it over before the ink had dried. He read it, looked at the map, then asked me to get it again. I tried. The voice did not return. That was how the morning worked. A message would arrive just alive enough to hurt you, then vanish before it could become useful. At first, I thought the worst thing would be hearing fear. It was not. The worst thing was hearing almost enough, almost a position, almost a request, almost a warning, almost a voice that might have changed what someone did next. By then, the radio room had changed, not into panic, into sharpness. Every word shortened. Repeat that. Which beach? Who sent it? What time? Say again. Confirm source. The men around me were still professionals. That almost made it colder. Their hands moved. Their voices stayed controlled. Their faces had tightened into something beyond fear. A man trying to keep numbers from becoming people. Then 2 signals came at once. One was stronger, a routine update from a craft still offshore. The other was weak, very weak. It came in underneath the stronger voice, like a man speaking from the bottom of a well. I caught only pieces. Pinned. Smoke. Right side. Cannot move. Then the stronger message covered it. Procedure said to take the clearer traffic first. Clear messages can be confirmed. Clear messages can be logged. Clear messages do not make you guess. But the weak voice came again, shorter this time, almost gone. I lifted one side of the headset, shouted for the other channel to hold, and turned the dial back by a hair. The operator across from me looked over. He knew what I had done. I had chosen the broken voice. For a few seconds, I gave it the whole room inside my head. The voice came through again. Not enough, but more than before. Smoke needed. Right flank. Men pinned. No clear exit. Then static took him. I wrote the words as they came. Not clean. Not complete. Not safe. The officer reached for the slip. I held it for 1 second longer than I should have. Because once I gave it to him, it became something else. Not a voice anymore. Not fear. A report. A thing that could move through command. A thing someone might act on. He looked at me. Confirmed? I answered the only honest way I could. No. Then I looked at the paper. But it is all we have. He took it. For a moment, nothing happened. That was the longest moment of the morning. Then he turned and carried it to the map. Another officer bent over it. A finger found the beach. A pencil made a mark that looked too small for the weight placed on it. Orders began moving. Not because I had saved anyone. I do not know that. I have never claimed that. Only because 3 unfinished words had crossed the water and someone decided they were worth passing on. That was my choice. That was my consequence. After that, the morning became louder. More channels opened. More reports came in. Some contradicted each other. Some arrived too late. Some were repeated until they became almost meaningless. The first climax was not the worst silence. It was the moment the map stopped pretending. Markers shifted, then shifted again. One beach exit was questioned. One unit's position was crossed out. A pencil line was rubbed so hard it tore the edge of the paper. The plan was still there, but now the plan had wounds. I kept listening. The weak voice did not return. I told myself he had moved. I told myself his set had failed. I told myself another operator had him. Men lie to themselves in small ways so their hands can keep working. Then a different call came in from closer to the shore, clear for 3 seconds, long enough to hear water in the background, long enough to hear engines. long enough to hear a man take one breath before speaking. He gave a call sign, a time, then 3 words I could not complete. I wrote them anyway. The pencil left a dark groove in the paper. The message slip was thin, damp at one corner from someone's wet sleeve. Call sign, time, 3 unfinished words. I placed it beside the others, but later, without thinking, I picked it up and put it in my pocket. I do not remember doing it. I only remember finding it there after the day had gone dark, folded, soft from sweat, still unfinished. That slip became the thing I carried from D-Day. Not a flag, not a photograph, not a medal. A piece of paper with a sentence that never reached its end. The true climax came later, when the line cleared for a voice I recognized. Not by name, I never knew his name, but I knew the rhythm of him. He was the one who paused before numbers, the one who sounded calm by force. He came back weaker than before. I leaned forward so fast the chair scraped beneath me. He was trying to correct the earlier message, trying to give more, trying to turn confusion into something we could use. I wrote every piece. Left, no, repeat, smoke drifting, cannot see. Then another voice broke over him, then engines, then static. I called back, say again, nothing. I called again, nothing. The officer asked if I had it. I looked at the slip. There were words on it. There was not enough truth, but the room was waiting. The beach was still moving. The next men were still coming. I passed the slip up. This time, no one asked if it was clean. They could see it was not. They took it anyway. That was when I understood something I had not understood before. War is not only made of orders, it is made of damaged information moving through tired hands. It is made of men deciding what to do with half a sentence. For a short while after that, I heard nothing from that voice. Not a cry, not a final word, just absence. And because I had known his rhythm, the absence had a shape. The headset made every silence personal. Other men heard reports. I heard the places where voices had been. By late morning, the map began to change again. This time, slowly, some markers moved inland and stayed there. Reports became firmer in places. Not clean, never clean, but firmer. A unit reached a point someone could identify. A gap opened. A message came through that did not break before the end. The officers began to speak with a little more certainty. Not triumph. No one in that room sounded triumphant. More like men who had been holding a door shut against a storm and had realized the hinges might hold after all. I took one side of the headset off my ear, just for a moment. The room returned. Boots on the floor, paper moving, low voices, a cup set down too hard, the ship's engines under everything. It shocked me how ordinary it sounded. The world could contain both things at once. Men fighting for inches of beach, and coffee cooling in a tin cup. The silence afterward was not true silence. There were still radios, still orders, still aircraft overhead, still ships moving. But something inside me had gone quiet. The part that believed listening was the same as understanding. I had listened as hard as a man could listen. Still, the morning remained larger than me. Later, someone asked for the early slips to be gathered. I gave them what I had, all except the one in my pocket. I found it when I stood up. My fingers closed around it before I knew what it was. For a moment, I thought about handing it over. Then I did not. It was not useful anymore. It would not change a map. It would not complete a report. It was only a piece of the morning that had passed through my hands and refused to become whole. Years later, people would ask me what I saw on D-Day. I would tell them the truth. Not much. A radio room. A map, a pencil, a gray edge of sea through a narrow opening, a message slip folded in my palm. But I heard it. I heard the invasion before it became footage, before it became anniversary speeches, before it became names carved into stone. I heard men trying to make themselves understood while the largest operation of our lives moved through weather, water, smoke, and fear. History remembers D-Day in images, landing craft, beaches, flags, the long road into Europe. I remember it in sound, a voice, a broken message, a pencil moving too slowly, and the place where a sentence should have finished. When people say the beach was taken, I think of the moments before that sentence was possible, when the map still looked simple, when nothing was certain, when the headset pressed against my ears, and the beach went silent.